In my last video, I asked you all to entertain the idea that Andor Season 1 was trying to show us that canari was being mined for the purpose of gaining minerals for the Death Star. Canari may not have started as a Death Star mining facility, but it could have become that when the Death Star plans were created during the Clone Wars. That doesn't mean I'm absolutely right, but I did have a reason for saying it all, and I'm going to get into that reason in this video. There's one thing for sure. The fate of Cassian Andor was intertwined with that of the Death Star from a young age. Hence the reason in Rogue One, Cassian Andor said he had been in this fight since he was 6 years old. During Andor Season 1, we weren't outright shown him at 6 years old fighting the Empire. That would have been impossible because the Republic was around when he was 6 years old. So I had the thought that maybe canari was the linchpin to his youth, and that maybe it wasn't the Empire he was strictly talking about. Maybe he had been in the fight against the Empire in its other form, the Republic, and the end of the Republic, as Palpatine made his move for power. With canari being mined, as we've seen in Andor Season 1, then all the adults missing, this could have been what was talked about when he was chastising Jyn Erso. Like I said, I don't have to be right, but Andor didn't confirm or deny any of this, so it works for my own canon. I hate the words headcanon, even though that's probably what this is. Actually, Andor Season 1 and Andor Season 2 left it all up for our own interpretation. So we will connect a few more dots to make this all tie together. Andor and Rogue One. Yes, you're here. Now move your thumb to the subscribe button and gently press it. You like my content, and I like creating it for you. In order to do more and have more time to do better, I would like to get to 50,000 subscribers. At 50,000 subscribers, I will do a live stream where I will see how many drinks I can consume and still be coherent. That should be fun. You won't want to miss it. To hit that mark, you may also want to share the video with friends, or if you don't like me, share it with people you don't like. It's up to you. Cassian Andor and the Death Star are starcrossed. And by the way, starcrossed doesn't mean what a lot of people think it does. It basically means they are destined to die, as we see in Romeo and Juliet. Seriously, it turns my stomach when I see a post on Facebook or any other social media where someone is claiming that they and their mate are star-crossed lovers. I chuckle a little. Then I cry and pee. It means they are destined to a tragic outcome, but that is exactly what Cassian Andor and the Death Star are, even if unwittingly, and not really lovers. No, they're not lovers. But for spits and giggles, let's go with the term. If, big if, canari was eventually mined for a resource for the first Death Star and the Republic campaigned for a massive cover-up over the mining accident. We've never heard them use that phrase before. Oh, wait. Remember Jedha? Okay. If they were mining it for the first Death Star in Andor Season 1, then that puts Cassian Andor in the mix at an early age. The Republic turns into the Empire, and we go from there. Cassian Andor then becomes intertwined with the Death Star. Cassian Andor on canari, as seen in the flashbacks of Andor Season 1, is then there for the first steps in creating the physicality of the Death Star, not the planning. When Marva and Clem Andor arrive on canari, they pull Cassian, then known as Cassa, to safety just before the Republic arrives and wipes out the rest of the population. Children. Thus, Cassian Andor narrowly escapes his first brush with death caused by what would later become the Death Star. Stay with me. This will all make sense, I promise. Cassian Andor has a close call with the Primor security force on Ferrix and escapes to Niamos for a vacation. While on Niamos, Cassian is arrested for a crime he had nothing to do with. This is the Empire's way of gaining slave workers. Cassian Andor is then shipped to the prison facility of Narkina 5, where it was later revealed that he was in fact working on components for the Death Star. While imprisoned, he and several other orchestrate a prison riot where he and Melshi escape the planet. As he is hiding on Narkina, you can see in the background that the Empire is hunting down the escapees. We don't know what happened to them, but we do know that anyone who enters the Narkina facilities does not escape alive. They are transferred from one unit to another until they expire. With Cassian Andor escaping Narkina, he has again avoided a terrible fate involving the Death Star. Later in Andor Season 2, Cassian goes to Gorman to link up with the Gore Resistance. The planet is to be mined for calcite, the mineral needed for the focus lenses of the Death Star. Later, he travels back to Gorman as the peak of hostilities erupt and the Gorman massacre takes place. Cassian Andor escapes just in time. As we can safely assume, all in attendance of the protest against Imperial occupation are killed or jailed, possibly even to the Narkina prison system. Again, Cassian escapes death with another premise of the Death Star. Even later in Andor Season 2, Cassian Andor attempts a rescue of Clea Markey. The information Clea carries is vague. There's a superweapon, and this information needs to get to the rebellion and its leaders. While retrieving Clea from Coruscant, the group is pinned down by the ISB, or Imperial Security Bureau, and the information about the superweapon is at jeopardy. In the end, K2SO comes through, and again Cassian Andor escapes. Another premise of the Death Star. Then we move to Rogue One. Cassian Andor is sent to Kafrene, the rings thereof, to meet with Tivik, who has information about an Imperial pilot and a superweapon. Cassian and Tivik become cornered by stormtroopers, and Cassian kills Tivik, then killing Tivik so he can escape. Another close call involving the Death Star. The information given to Cassian Andor at the beginning of Rogue One leads him to Jeddah to meet Saw Gerrera. There he finds the Imperial pilot. By now the Death Star is operational and requires just testing. What better place to test it than Jeddah City? Well, that's what happens. But this time Cassian Andor barely makes it out as the Death Star blasts the area. Another close call involvement of the Death Star. Then the information retrieved and the message from Galen Erso leads Cassian Andor to Scarif, where he plans for the Death Star are held. He and Jyn Erso retrieve the plans. Jyn sends them shooting into space to the waiting rebel fleet, and the Death Star shows up. This time, Cassian Andor does not escape. He and Jyn Erso are killed on Scarif. That seems like the end, right? Nope. Well, yes, it's the end for Cassian Andor, but it isn't the end of Cassian and the Death Star being star-crossed. Mere days later, an inexperienced farm boy pilots an X-Wing from the Rebellion and blows up the Death Star. He takes most of the credit, gets a medal, and Cassian is as forgotten as the particles of the Death Star flittering about in space. Yes, I know A New Hope was written before Cassian Andor was even a thought, but for comedy, let me be, okay? The point is, if Canari was eventually mined for some resource for the first Death Star, Cassian Andor and the Death Star watched each other grow, even if Cassian was unaware most of the time, like some kind of strange symbiotic relationship. After Cassian Andor dies, the Death Star too perishes. Not the Death Star lost the will to live or anything, it's just a machine with no consciousness. Maybe it died from being sad. I don't know. Andor leaves us with a lot of questions, and a lot of them are open-ended, left to our interpretation. This is just one of my interpretations of the life and death of Cassian Andor and the Planet Killer. A lot of lives were lost in an attempt to stop the Death Star. Also, a lot of lives were ended in an attempt to create the Death Star on the side of the Empire. Both Cassian Andor and the Death Star became particles in space, star-crossed. Not lovers, but they were tied to each other, and I think Andor and Rogue One did an amazing job of leaving this for us to debate. In my last couple videos, and yes, this one too, I have described the mining of canari as part of the construction of the Death Star. Canari and the elimination of all the adults happened roughly 2 years prior to Emperor Palpatine taking over the galaxy and creating the First Galactic Empire. and 1 year after the Clone Wars began. This is also 1 year after Count Dooku took the Death Star plans from Geonosis and handed them over to Darth Sidious. A lot of people didn't like the idea that the mining was happening before the Death Star was even under construction. Well, I'll put it this way. In our own world, what structure being built do you know of being mined for the materials needed during the actual construction? The material is mined and processed prior to construction beginning, when the plans are made for the structure and they are approved. Can you imagine how World War II would have turned out if we had to mine the steel for the ships and equipment as they were being built while war was going on? Darth Sidious had a plan, and his plan took years of strategic planning. Even before he became a senator from Naboo, it was in his mind. It isn't unlikely that his plans for the Death Star were made even just prior to the Clone Wars starting. He manipulated a lot of people, manipulating the Geonosians into designing it, then later helping build the beginning stages of it. Would not have been a stretch. We see the plans on Geonosis, so the minerals would have began to be gathered shortly thereafter. But, as I said, these are just my thoughts on it. Let me know what you think in the comments, and all respectful comments are appreciated. You don't have to agree with me. Just be a human about it. We're all Star Wars fans. Don't leave yet. You haven't subscribed. Click it. Click it. Go ahead. Click it. You know you want to. Also, give a big stupid thumbs up for the video and share it with anyone you think will enjoy it, or even people you don't think will enjoy it. Yeah, they'll get it. They'll come around eventually. Also, you can share it with a donkey if you wish. Until the next time, may the Force be with you. Unless you have really bad breath. In that case, go brush your teeth, then let the Force be with you.